Welcome to Mainland Television Regional News. I'm Graham O'Brien, and in news today, Victory gets security camera funding, a burning issue still smoulders, and Richmond is in demand for buyers. Good news for Victory residents as the Canterbury Community Trust, the CCT, approves the Council's application to secure funding for a closed-circuit television security camera at Victory Square. The application was made in response to a residents' survey on safety, which identified that Victory Square was the place residents felt the least safe. Those who took the survey felt that the presence of a CCTV would make them feel safer and that the camera could help identify offenders. As a result, in December 2014, the Victory Community Centre's Keep Victory Safe project made a presentation to Council's Community Service Committee to request a camera be installed at Victory Square. The total amount needed to install and operate the camera for 3 years was calculated at $10,264,000, and Council requested half of that funding from the CCT to match its own contribution. The Council says this joint initiative is an example of its commitment to work in partnership with other organisations for the benefit of Nelson, and how listening to and working with community groups makes Nelson a safer city. Council see that the provision of a CCTV will help to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour. Gail Peach of Keep Victory Safe said the organisation is delighted to hear of the funding, and council officers will now work with the building owner and service provider to have the CCTV camera installed. The camera will be monitored by Nelson Police. I had an opportunity to catch up with Chief Inspector Steve Greeley and Councillor Matt Laurie after the meeting on Victory Security last week before this funding announcement was made. We're down at Zumos today where Councillor Laurie and Commander Greeley had a bit of an informal chat about the Victory area, and we're just asking their comments about today's meeting. Commander.
Yeah, no, I think it was a very useful conversation, and it just demonstrates a point where police and communities are interacting together. We've got open dialogue, open communication, and a really high level of trust. It's really important that police and their communities understand each other and work together to achieve the right outcomes, making it people safer and feel safer. That's really, really important for us.
It sure is, Commander, and it's great to see everyone's coming together and talking about what is best for our community.
Absolutely, 100%. That was very useful.
Thank you very much. And Matt, for you today, the meeting, how do you feel it went?
Oh, I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased with the turnout. It was a group of people who are all really involved and interested in the Victory community. We had a volunteer from the police base. We had a representative from the Nelson Multicultural Council. We had the woman from Keep Victory Safe, Kendra from the Victory Community Centre, Hugh Gully from Nelson Intermediate, and Helen Taylor-Young from Victory Primary School, and myself. And it was good. It was a good chat about where things are at. The police base moved to the community centre about 2 years ago. So we were talking about how that's been working, and we were talking about some of the issues that are going on in Victory today, and talking about what might be possible in the future, and it was just generally a good exchange of ideas and information.
Oh, it's great to see all the key people from the community coming out, as it should be.
And also, it is great that Steve Greeley was able to do it, because he's a busy man and he's off to Wellington pretty soon, so we really appreciate it, Steve.
No problem at all. No, my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Now summer is officially over, and Nelson Council are reviewing wood burner rules, as Nelson rules are the strictest in the country by a long way. But unfortunately, it's just not that easy. For some unknown reason, the original council put a prohibitive order on the decision, making it impossible to change without central government approval. That meeting was publicly excluded. The Mayor gives us her insights. So, what do you think? Is Council going to reconsider their stance on the wood burners and in favour of the ultra low emissions burners that have just been approved?
We decided last year that we'd review, so we went through that process. I have to say, we do what we call our resident survey during the year, and some of the questions came through to me.
Phone survey?
Yeah, phone survey, and I looked at it and I saw there was a question on what sort of fuel, do you use, what heating source do you have at home? And I said, can you ask the question about whether they buy their wood or they get it for free? Because what my thinking was that in Nelson a lot of people are very good foragers. It's what we do. We forage. We've got fruit trees out in public domain, and we use those. We have access to firewood, and I had a sneaking suspicion that we'd find that was quite a high percentage of people who have free firewood. So if you're looking at affordability, and it's around it's not just housing affordability, it's living affordability. Then you've got to look at those things like home heating and what's an affordable source. In Nelson, having a wood burner actually is a pretty good option. But what we do have is we have some airsheds that are struggling to meet the national environmental standards. They're written by central government. We have to apply them. No choice on that. That's our role as local government. But we also have airsheds where there's an opportunity there, I think, for either ultra-low emission burners, potentially for some good clean heat burners to come in, and that's what we're working to at the moment for a plan change. So we've said, right, let's get on with it. We've got the frustrating thing for me, and Graham, you've probably heard me talk about this before, is that over the last few years, there have been budget cuts within council that took out the monitoring. We weren't doing the monitoring of those airsheds that I think we needed to as a regional council. Yeah. And had we been doing that, I think we could have moved this forward faster. Without that monitoring, this will go through a full plan change process. Depending on where the legislation goes, it might go to the Environment Court, or we might go through a consensus process. Yeah. But we need good science, good evidence to make sure that we're not polluting that airshed to the point that we breach those national environmental standards. So I wish the Resource Management Act was more flexible. Because we've got a prohibited rule that was hardwired in, we're really stuck with that, and I'm trying everything I can think of at the moment to find a way where we're not stuck in that absolutely no movement position. So we're not allowed by law to allow any more wood burners, any changeovers, and that's frustrating because I know there are people out there who are using old wood burners who actually, if they were allowed, they'd change it to a clean heat one, and that's better for the environment.
This prohibitive order, can you tell us a little bit more about this? Because I looked at the old, I went back and actually looked at the original the original council meeting, and where did this prohibitive order come into, and why was it put on so that we just can't change our bylaws whatsoever?
It's part of the way that the Resource Management Act works, where you think there's a serious risk to your community, then you can use a prohibited status for something to say you may not even apply for a resource consent, you may not come and use this. And that was when the plan was originally drafted back in, would have been 98, 90, long way back, way before I became a councillor, although I did submit on this, I have to say, because I had an old timber villa that actually did rely on wood heating as a source of heating. I think with the best of intentions, the rules were written to try and improve the air quality, but what they hadn't thought about is, as you start to make those improvements and actually the air cleans and cleans and cleans and technology comes along, how you actually can be adaptive and flexible about change. And I talk about that prohibited rule as the sledgehammer in the RMA toolbox, and you really shouldn't get it out very often. I think that's one of the things that we have to remember as a council, is that you get so involved in your council world that you think the rest of the world is actually as involved as you are. Yeah.
Taking notice at all.
And taking notice, and actually that's not the case. And so I kind of go, if you're going to make a change to somebody's heating source, it's one of the the basics. It is the basics of life. And you and you're going to say, well, actually, next week there's a rule in here that next week, if you haven't changed over, you can't change over ever. Then you actually have to write directly to that person. Yeah. You actually have to send them a letter.
Well, you have to go and knock on their door.
You do,
everyone gets a letter from council and goes, they're not going to do anything.
Yeah. So look, we're doing everything we can to try and get that flexibility in there. I'm feeling quite positive about particularly Airshed C and parts of B out in the Stoke area. I think there's going to be some movement there. And look, the work that's being done on those ultra low emission burners is great, but they're expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they'll come down. I mean,
they will.
They'll come down as more people use them.
Well, that's right. And if we can create the market where there's opportunity, then the price will come down.
And it's a Nelson business.
Yeah, it's great.
So we've got to help them along.
We do.
Unfortunately, the 6-month-long Working Party committee that was set up to give a recommendation to Council has not started the process on a good note, as it did not include any public consultation, as was written in the terms of reference, with Chair Councillor Ackland citing the lack of time to consult. The full council did adopt the recommendation regardless of the 30+ protesters who called for the report to be sent back to the Working Party. Concerned citizens have formed their own Working Party to try and ensure that Council meet their obligations to the people, and an official complaint has been lodged with the Ombudsman concerning this lack of process, and they are investigating. We sent Leonard to ask people how they felt about these strict rules.
Council has prevented the use of wood burners in houses with built-in fires in a change of rules in 2005. Those people who didn't apply before a cut-off date can never reapply to have a usable fire. What are your feelings on the current wood burner rules?
Well, I think they're a little bit stupid, to be honest, because, I mean, in the event of a big power cut, sort of like down in Christchurch when they had the earthquakes, you've got no way to heat your house. They can be more expensive, especially in the middle of winter when you've got to keep your house warm. And even with the modern houses that have got the sort of all the good insulation and everything, you do still get cold. And a modern wood burner or even an old fireplace, it's going to keep you warmer than pretty much anything else around.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know terribly much about them, but I think they're probably very stringent and don't allow people to burn. But then again, there's the environmental aspect of having smog and smoke around. So, yeah, it's an interesting question. And I don't know there's no silver bullet answer to that one.
Wood that all smokes, so, you know, it doesn't matter what sort of fire you got, wood burns. It smokes, it's wood.
It's good that we don't have a lot of wood burners going on. At the same time, it's a way to keep electricity costs down. So clean wood burners are probably a good idea, as long as they're safe.
Yeah, I'm strongly opposed to the current rules. I don't think it's fair. It's not fair on residents who live in the area. Obviously in winter it gets pretty cold here, and you don't have many options at the moment. And so I think allowing people to have fires in their home, would provide a much better solution for warming your place. I really feel sorry for people who, can't use fires.
And I don't like those, heat pump, because if a fire goes off, you got nothing left. Wood burners, they're very good. I like it. I'll be disappointed if they allow, you know.
In what ways have these rules affected you?
When we bought our house, the guy who sold us our house had taken the fireplace out, and we can't really put one back in. So it's affected us in a negative way, but I understand why. So.
Well, they affect us personally. We're building a new home at the moment, and it's hard to believe we can't install a fireplace.
Me personally, they haven't, because as I live in Richmond, but I've got a few friends that live around and they've had fireplaces for years and moved into flats that that have the fireplace there, but they can't use them, so they're having to use oil column heaters and little electric heaters or the air conditioning pump, which is quite expensive.
Well, I did get a council-approved fire, but because I don't make much money, they gave it to me. But I much prefer my old Kent back, because the fire they gave me is a bullshit one.
Well, me personally, I've got a neighbour that has a fireplace, and all the smoke comes from his fireplace into my house and affects my daughter. I can't get a fireplace because it was gone when I bought the house. So heat pumps are good. And you should use heat pumps, but they should be connected to solar power to reduce the energy bill. And they're very efficient in that way.
Should industry within the city boundary be made to curb their emissions too?
That, to me, seems quite unfair.
There's a rule for the rich and a rule for people like me, and we always lose people like me, so...
I find trucks, for example, the rules don't necessarily apply to large trucks, and they pollute incredibly bad. So the rules should apply for everyone.
If you curb industry, then you're affecting the economy and people's jobs. So, it's a very tough one, yeah.
Every man for himself, it seems, as Nelson City Council head off to Nelson Police to see if they can take legal action against Greg Shaw of Everyman Records for not repaying $260,000 worth of debt. A debt that was of Shaw's making through not paying council for ticket sales for the 2012 Nelson Arts Festival, the 2013 Opera in the Park, and 2 buskers in the Nelson events. Shaw placed the business into voluntary liquidation in June last year with a total debt of $640,000, leaving council as the largest unsecured creditor and owed $264,000. NCC's Governance Committee meeting this week brought it all to a head when it was decided by 6 votes to 3 to approach the police about Shaw, with councillors Luke Ackland, Brian McGurk and unelected committee member John Peters voting against Eric Davies' resolution to do so. Nelson Mayor Rachel Reese agreed that the matter should be followed up with the police, criticising the processes under the previous council that led to the loss of such a significant amount of money. She said that as a councillor at the time, she wasn't informed of the situation, even after being alerted to the large debt in June 2013, when she and fellow councillors had requested from council staff a report on the finances of Everyman Records and whether it was trading while insolvent. Council staff had been told by Shaw's lawyer that Everyman's Records was solvent, with the exception of the debt owed to Nelson City Council. Claire Hadley was Council Chief Executive at the time that staff took it upon themselves to enter a repayment deal with Shaw's lawyer, agreeing that Shaw repay $700 a week. Claire Hadley said staff at the time thought they were doing the best thing. Mayor Reese said this week that the company would not be solvent with such a significant debt and that councillors should have been alerted to that knowledge, saying that she was astounded when picking up the report for the first time and astounded that it had been accepted. Staff had made a very dangerous choice in entering the repayment agreement, she said, leaving disastrous effects, lacking transparency, and leaving the Everyman to trade on for another year without public knowledge of the huge debt. The processes have now changed and council now require all money held on its behalf to be stored in a trust. Reese said she had held preliminary discussions with the police, who had advised her that theft had a high threshold, but there might be another avenue the council could take. Nelson City Council Arts Festival organisers are wanting public input to this year's Marth Parade and have made a competition to inspire those who have a vision to let it be known. They want some new ideas for the theme, and this is an opportunity for anyone to submit bold and creative ideas for this year's festival's standout event. So think of a theme you would like to see that would allow imaginations of the young and old to run wonderfully wild with. If your theme is chosen, you not only get to see it come to life on Friday the 16th of October, your group will be given the chance to lead. Past themes include Sparkling Sustainable Future, The Playful Pacific, Myths and Legends, Adventurous Journeys, and Earth, Wind and Fire. To submit your idea, go online to nelson.govt.nz and search Theme Competition. Quotable Value New Zealand figures released this week show that the Residential Price Movement Index for February is showing Nelson homes values have been flat, even decreasing slightly by 0.2% over the past 3 months. However, values overall in Nelson have increased by 1.4% year on year since February 2014 and are now 6.6% higher than in previous peak of 2007. Residential property values in the Tasman district have increased by 1.7% over the past 3 months. QV says Tasman values have increased 2.6% year on year since February 2014, and they are now 5.1% higher than the previous peak of 2007. According to QV Nelson registered valuer Richard Clough, there is a good demand for homes in the $300,000 to $450,000 price range, particularly in Richmond, where some homes are going under offer within a week of being listed. He said that there has been an increase of interest from out-of-town buyers, from those nearing or at retirement age and less affected by job options. Retirees are moving to Nelson or Tasman to take advantage of the warm climate and relaxed lifestyle found here. In the South Island, the areas showing the largest residential property increases over the past 3 months are in Invercargill City, where values rose 2.3%, Queenstown Lakes districts also up by 2%, and the Tasman district, where values increased by 1.7%. Parking in the city can be an issue when one is in a hurry, and now that free parking seems to have been embraced by shoppers, we asked some on the streets if people are taking too much advantage of the free parking on offer.
Do you believe that people are taking advantage of the 1 hour free parking in Nelson?
No, I think there should be totally free parking here in Nelson. Yeah. Okay. You can charge to park somewhere, that's a bit rude, eh? In Nelson anyway.
I love it. Love it. I think it's a fantastic idea to bring business back into the CBD, yeah. I think it's a little bit hard to take advantage of it with the way that they police it. I think they police it pretty hard, yeah.
But I enjoy the hour free parking. That's very good. I enjoy that. Yeah, I come into town for an hour most days to have a coffee and that. So an hour is very good.
I don't know, but I know that when they reduced it from the whole day free parking to 1 hour, the car parks emptied out quite a bit. So I think when it was free parking, people just went and parked there instead of somewhere else.
I think the 1 hour parking, free parking in Nelson's made a big difference. I mean, before that, I was actually scared of coming into town because it was such a hassle to have change in my pocket, make sure that I had, you know, a ticket. And for me, it was just much easier to go to Richmond. But now I actually come into town because I know that I've got that hour. Most people, I think, they want to come into town, they do a bit of business or whatever, do a bit of shopping. 1 hour's, yeah, it's okay, yeah.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.